Hey everybody, it's Catherine. How you doing? Elevated consciousness coach, 5D visionary. Hello. Greeting you from my kitchen today. I try to keep switching it up where I go live from in my house. And it's always a battle for lighting. Today we have an amazingly sunny blue sky day, which does not happen very often here in Northwest Washington, on the coastal side of things. But oh my God, I just got back from a beautiful walk and there isn't a cloud in the sky, not yet. So I'm gonna finish this video and get back out there because you gotta take advantage of these sunny days. Hey Chantal, I see some people joining. So today I wanted to talk about something really, really important. It's been on my mind a lot. I've been channeling a lot of information around this as well. I have an entire course built around this information called In Alignment and Thriving Core Program. And the reason why there is so much emphasis around this idea that emotions are keys, emotions actually are portals to elevating our consciousness, hi Carrie, is because we are in a really interesting, let's just say, limbo. We're kind of in this, I don't want to call it a waiting period, but it feels more like a limbo. And the key to progressing forward for our individual lives and for the collective of humanity is being able to process emotions in ways that we really haven't been able to before or wouldn't allow ourselves to before. And we can't help but see certain themes coming up, key pieces around our emotional progression where we are unwilling to look at, to acknowledge, and to accept the amount of judgment that is swirling around in our personal lives and in the collective at the moment. There, now I can see. And it's important to talk about how emotions, especially those that vibrate at the lower end of the emotional spectrum. So I really want to target in this talk specifically blame, shame, resentment, and judgment overall. And anytime we hold any of those resonances of anger, shame, blame, resentment, automatically we're in judgment, right? And there's undoubtedly a whole lot of judgment swirling around the planet at this time. He said, she said, how dare you feel that way, do that thing, say that thing. We're walking around pretty much offended at every turn because of something that we take personally. And anything we take personally, it's not neutral in our energy. It means we are filtering it through the ego, right? So anything that we take into our energy field, we don't feel neutral about, we feel triggered by. We feel an emotional charge to it. There's some judgment to it. So the judgment is the umbrella that holds all these other key emotions that, again, vibrate at the lower end of the emotional spectrum and allow them to take hold and allow them to take a place in our lives where we will kind of build an identity, we build a personal reality, we build themes in our lives around emotions, don't we? Your whole personal reality and the way you identify yourself, the way you define yourself is built off of the key emotional pieces that are running your life. Would you agree? So the go-to emotions that you are charged by, that fuel you, in other words, throughout your day, creates the bigger story, the narrative of how you define yourself, and then by projection, how you would define your external reality, because it's never that we might think it's this way. It's never that our external reality is defining us. It's always our internal reality that is defining our external reality. I talk about this all the time. I have hundreds of videos where I go to this point often. I have a whole course that I've built around it. It's never ever outside in. It is always inside out that defines us, creates our personal reality and how we identify ourselves in the world. It's always an inside out influence, never outside in. When we have certain events and scenarios, themes, triggers show up in our lives, it's only and ever going to reach us at the resonance that we're already vibrating at in our internal reality, right? So let me give you an example. When you think about a period of your life that's particularly painful, maybe you went through a real, dark night of the soul type situation. You had a huge emotional breakdown, which led to a breakthrough. A lot of people have been sharing lately about their spiritual awakening, coming out of a place of trauma, a time of trauma in their life. This is a theme for a lot of people. And we, to the degree that we still hold an energy within us that it should have been different, I should have been different, the world should be different, anything that has that charge to it is telling you something really vital and very important. That you're holding on to something that you keep identifying yourself with or using as a litmus test to identify yourself against that. And thereby you are defining, by extension, your entire external reality, how you feel about the world at large. So if you have this theme that's popping up, and a lot of us have very profound and intense emotional themes arising, and it's because we are moving into a new timeline for this planet. So everything that doesn't align with the frequency of this new timeline taking hold, it's got to go. And the way things leave our field is that it comes up for processing, it comes up for integration, it comes up as a part of us, because there's, anything that we feel is a part of us, okay? Even the painful stuff that we wish wasn't, it's our shadow. It's an extension of self. We try to teach it we try to treat it like it's not an extension of us or it's something outside of us. It never is. If it's something in your field and it gives you some sort of pain or makes you feel some sort of resentment, blame, shame, etc., it's yours. However, I will talk about the collective influence with that in a second. So if you're holding this negative charge around some emotional theme coming up, maybe you're remembering some dark night of the soul moment, maybe you're remembering your spiritual awakening, maybe there's something that's coming up in your life now that is very reminiscent of something you thought you already went through, or you thought something you already triumphed over, etc. We are layered human beings. We're very incredibly complex. So you might have very well worked through that particular base layer, let's just say, but now there's another layer coming up. And the reason it's coming up is because you can't take this energy with you. It doesn't resonate, or it's not held in a vibration where it's supported in the New Earth timeline, which is where we're all headed, whether we like it or not. And whether some people want to wake up and see that or not, that's incidental, because this New Earth timeline is here. We just haven't anchored it yet. So you might be saying, man, this old chestnut again, I thought I already dealt with this. I thought I already cleared it. I feel this kind of sense of melancholy. I feel this sense of like self-blame. I keep saying to myself, my God, this again, and we're kicking ourselves, blaming ourselves for not successfully going through processing this theme or whatever. None of that is true, by the way. And you can't beat yourself up about it, because there you are in judgment. And whenever that crops up, whenever these things that I'm talking about crop up, you know that you're in judgment. Anytime you're saying it should have been different, that person's response should have been different, this should have been better handled, this should be happening in society, you are in judgment. And whatever we judge, we are not accepting. Okay? And there might be some really ugly shit happening on the planet at the time. There is. Again, judgment. We can't help it. We can't help it. We're in a world of duality. We can't help it. But we don't have to live our lives in the duality. We can rise out of the place and rise up past the place where we are constantly in judgment with every theme, every key area of our lives. When we do this, we know that we are moving up through the stations of awareness of elevated consciousness instead of having it just be a lateral move. Okay. So what we judge, we don't accept. And yes, there might be some shady ass agendas on this planet at this time. There are, absolutely. But can you still, because this is the true marker and allows us to wear the mantle of moving into elevated consciousness, if we can look at what's happening and say, I can accept that this is happening. I don't have to participate in it. I can opt out of the people who are, or the hive mind of mass consciousness who are clinging to something that feels like very unwholesome for the rest of the planet. I don't have to hook myself, my attention, my awareness, my focus into something that doesn't feel good or wholesome. Okay? But I can accept that it's there. Acceptance isn't about like, just do it anyway. Just allow it to affect you negatively continually. That's not acceptance. And acceptance isn't also, it's also not rolled up in like, I don't have to do anything about it. Okay? Acceptance through the lens of a higher perspective is about saying, I see that this is happening. I acknowledge that this is part of reality. I acknowledge that a lot of people on the planet are participating in this thing. I don't have to, though. And you're starting to change that dynamic right there by saying, I will no longer invest the most powerful thing I have, which is my energetic frequency, my awareness, my attention, my focus. I don't have to place that investment on this thing that's happening that I don't like and I don't agree with it. And I don't think it's very wholesome for the planet. That's your power. And that does contribute to the collective, because the more and more people who opt out of a collective theme, a collective agreement on the planet, the more you are changing the face of it. You're changing the dynamic of it. You're changing the ripple effect of it. Okay? But we can't just leave it there. We have to strive for something better. And we have to be then, if you want to opt out of something that feels unwholesome, okay, well, what are you willing to do about it beyond that? Because we don't ever just leave the energetic void there of opting out and not putting anything in its place. Okay? Because the New Earth timeline is about anchoring more compassion, more kindness, more unity consciousness on the planet. That means belief in and action towards a more egalitarian way of being that benefits the good of all. Okay? Or what I call being aligned with the God choice, that which is aligned with your highest and best good, that which is aligned with the highest and best good of all, and with the least amount of resistance for all involved. That's the God choice. That's what takes us into 5D and beyond, okay? Because there isn't any judgment in fifth dimensional realities and beyond. It's unity consciousness beyond that. There is no duality like we know it here. So being able to opt out of judgment now, or holding a resonance of judgment around things in your life that you feel very strongly against, first of all, that just shows you where your ethics and your principles and your personal values lie. And that's always a good thing. So whenever you are presented with something that you don't like, what that really is giving you is a gift to evaluate your particular values, ethics, and principles, and saying, you know what? The reason why this feels off to me is because it is in direct conflict with what I value, with what I pride myself on, with how I want to carry myself through this world. Okay? That's the reason it feels icky and off. So where do you then have an opportunity to say, well, I opt out based on the fact that this is contradictory to what I believe in and what I think is most aligned with the God choice for myself and the planet? But don't just leave it there. How do you then take those ethics, values, and principles and apply that even more? Take an even more holistic approach to all those key areas in your life with those ethics, values, and principles intact. And another way to look at that is, what really gives you meaning? What really holds meaning for you? Because the things that we're judging, walking around being offended and we're judging stuff all the time, well, why does it offend you so much? Why are you judging it so much? Is it in direct conflict, at odds with what gives you meaning in your life, in life in general, right? So that always brings us back to the key feeling of, and the key concept of, what are my feelings around this? When I look at something I see as unfavorable or undesirable, what do you feel when you're confronted with undesirable? What does that feel like for you? Does it feel closed off? Does it feel contracted? Does it feel icky? Are you blaming other people for the state of the world at large? Are you feeling ashamed? Talking about the collective, I wanted to bring up something because I wrote something today. I created a post today that talks about women. I mean, all of us are holding a vision, those of us who are aligned with the God choice in feeling and deed and action. A lot of us are holding the frequency and the resonance for that to take hold on planet Earth and to anchor. But women are doing something really especially interesting right now, because we are built by design, if you want to call it like that, to hold the frequencies of woe, of lack, of scarcity, of pain in all of its forms, in ways that males kind of don't. And I know this might be triggering for those, who are female or male, but we are women. I'm sorry, it's just true. We're designed to hold pain in a deeper way, where we can hold it for longer periods of time. We can hold it for the collective, but we get it wrong as women when we think we have to keep holding on to it instead of letting it wash through us. We have a unique ability to feel things very, very strongly as women, but we also have a unique ability to think that we have to keep holding on to it because we equate that with nurturing. We have to hold another's pain, or we have to hold another's sorrow, or we have to hold it for the collective even. So when we're thinking about what's happening in the collective, there's a lot of sorrow, there's a lot of woe, there's a lot of lack, there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of scarcity, there's a lot of judgment. Okay. And we're feeling especially triggered as women because we feel like not only do we have to feel it, but we have to hold on to it. And that's somehow doing good for everybody. No. We have to be able to move through it. And we have to be able to practice really good discernment of, okay, I'm feeling this extreme melancholia or this woe, but is it mine? Or am I holding on to it for the collective? Because I think that if I take it on, I bear the brunt of it. I, bury myself under the weight of these burdensome emotions. I'm somehow rescuing or saving the planet. Here's another way to think about it. And men do this too, but to a different degree. Men are good at moving through the emotion very quickly, okay? And even though it seems like they're not processing things, they just process things differently, that's all. And I don't mean to be, mutually excluding the sexes based on gender here. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just talking about the processing of emotions is different for men and women. I'm not equating it as being good or bad. I'm just reporting, okay? So another thing about the collective, I was speaking to a client this morning in a meeting, and we were discussing something that has been coming up for her quite a bit. It's been coming up for me a lot. Feeling that her country, where she lives, which is Canada, she feels ashamed right now. And she's holding that shame in her body. She's holding it in her cells. She's holding it in her muscles, the tissue, the connective tissue, the fascia. She's holding it in each of her chakras. She's holding that feeling of shame. I feel ashamed for my country, and not moving through it and letting it go. It's one thing to recognize the emotion that's there, the shame, which she did. But letting it stop just there. Okay, well, what does that shame look like if it's healed? Blaming the president of the country also. Okay, well, what does that blame look like if it's healed? Okay. As good as we are at holding the energy of what it looks like to be in blame, what it looks like and feels like to be in shame, we have to be willing to push ourselves a little bit to hold the energy of, okay, well, what does the polarity of that look like? Okay, we already know we feel the blame. We already know we feel the shame. A lot of us who are looking at our nations, our countries, our counties, our leaders who are supposed to be getting us through this shit show here on planet Earth, we feel let down, right? We feel there's no leadership, and the leadership that is there is not effective, and it's very exclusionary, very closed off. Well, what does it look like on the other side of that? What does it look like and feel like beyond the judgment, in other words? And we're really good at being in the judgment, and we're really good at focusing on what we don't want. But we have to be willing to go deeper than that. We have to be willing to take it further than that. We have to be willing to push ourselves a little bit out of the comfort zone and say, well, largely how I've identified my reality has been someone that's like in scarcity or lack or feeling loss. Okay, who are you beyond that? Because nothing about your existence here is meant to be static. You might feel or identify with having those themes in your life for a long period of time, but nothing in our lives is meant to be static. Nothing in the universe is static. There is always, well, I don't want to say always, but there is movement, especially towards a lower vibrating realm of existence, 3D, towards something that is higher, towards something that is elevated in consciousness, a higher expression, until we enter very, very high dimensional realms where there's really just stillness. But when we're in the lower vibrating realms, we have to be able to look at, well, what's the next best available way of being, way of expressing, way of feeling? And we can only ever get there from a place of acceptance. So where can you right now, because this is the portal, going from judgment to acceptance, that is a portal that opens up a higher threshold of consciousness for you, a higher and better expression of who you are. You are literally taking yourself through the stages of elevated consciousness if you're willing to move to the next best available emotion. And after judgment, that's acceptance. Again, acceptance, if you're just joining now, I talked about it, what it is in the lens of a higher expression or higher consciousness. Acceptance isn't about saying, well, this is just how it is. That's judgment. Acceptance is, I can see this is happening. I can see a lot of people participating in this, but that's not my reality. However, I can accept that it's happening for some people or many people, but I don't have to take it on in my own field. And not only that, the acceptance, Finny, stop. I know it's a delivery man. Thank you for letting me know. Such a good boy. He likes to bark at the Amazon Prime delivery guy. I have new books coming today. I'm so excited. So the acceptance then, when you're in that vibration of, okay, I can see this is happening and I can accept that. I can accept that there's a mass of people who believe this particular thing. I can accept that our leadership at the moment sucks. I can accept that I might be in a stagnant period in my life, okay? But the energy never stops there. You don't stay there. You don't impose your own personal limbo or purgatory there. The next best step up is what you're striving for. And after acceptance, it's that kind of acknowledgement that you have power to opt out of what everyone else is doing or what doesn't feel wholesome. Do you see how there's just always, there has to be some sort of movement. There has to be stepping up through stations of awareness. We're designed and meant to experience all levels of the emotional spectrum here on 3D Earth. And what's really unique about this 3D time space is that we have an amazing breadth of emotions here. We have an incredible range of emotion, okay? Just think about love and how many different ways that's expressed platonically, romantically, otherwise, how we, have the ability to express love in many, many forms here. This is something that's quite unique to a 3D experience, okay? It's partially because we have this amazing emotional spectrum that goes from very low vibrating energy to very high vibrating energy, is because this is a realm of duality. This is a reality realm of contrast and polarity. So of course, if we have one end of the spectrum here vibrating very low, then we have another end of the spectrum vibrating very, very high. And our experience, our journey here, and why our souls decided to come here and explore, is to really have this experience of exploring this emotional spectrum in all of its forms. So we're never meant to be static with any of it, even if you define your entire life through the lens of lack or loss, limitation, okay? You're never meant to stay there, even though it feels that way. So you always have the power, the ability, the discernment, the choice, the decision to opt out and move into the next best available vibration. When we're in this place of judging in the collective, judging what the collective is doing, judging where the collective is going, and often feeling like we have to hold on to certain emotions in the collective, that's why we always have to practice discernment. Is this mine to work on? Because a lot of us, like my friend and client this morning who was feeling that deep sense of shame and blame, vibrates very, very low on the emotional spectrum, by the way. So you might feel those things, but that's why we can't languish there. We can't marinate in those energies, because then you're just attracting everything else that is an energetic match to those very low resonances, emotional themes of blame and shame. So holding on to that, all right, well, maybe you can honor that that's happening in the collective, but do you need to take it on as your own? No, you do not. Being able to cry, being able to cry and release when you feel these feels so profoundly, and let's face it, we're all feeling the feels in a really, really big way at this time. How do you release it? How do you move through it, in other words? Because you have to be able to release it and move through it to be available for the next best vibration or resonance or emotional imprint. So for me, crying is powerful. For me, journaling is powerful. For me, creating posts where I can illustrate these things to you, or having talks with you about what's going on and your power in being able to choose something better for yourself, that's a release also. So some people will get on their Nordic track and release it through exercise. You know, some people will go and ground it and ask Mother Earth to take it on. There are all kinds of ways to do it, but are you doing it? Because it's really incumbent upon each and every one of us individually to heal the collective by what we are doing on a personal basis every day, right? And through what we're willing to opt out of that feels unwholesome, it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel egalitarian for the collective, to the degree that you personally are willing to opt out of that or unhook from that and say, not mine to work on, I choose something better. You are not placing the most powerful energy in the universe, which is your own personal frequency, you're not placing that towards something that's unwholesome. When you say, I opt out, I unhook from that, I collapse that timeline where I'm participating in that. But we can never leave it there. We always have to move to the next best available vibration. And so what I often do, and I do this in my client work all the time, and we were doing it today with the client that I spoke to this morning, we're talking about, okay, what is one of the easiest emotions that's the next best available vibration after you release something, you let it go, you move through this emotion, in other words, is to go to gratitude. And the easiest way to do that for everyone, I don't care where you are in your life, how much of a shit show you're in, things might be falling apart, breaking down left and right. Every single one of you on this planet, without exception, has the ability to be in gratitude about something that is working out in your life. So what is that? What's working out? I know there's something. You're watching this on a computer or a phone. So you have this unique piece of technology that, some people in some places in the world don't have access to, or, for us, like our phone, I do so much stuff on my phone and on my computer. I'm on it a lot, both of them. And that's working out because this is my means of communication. So I have that to be grateful for. You do too, because you're watching me on whatever device you have. That's cool. You have time in your day, meaning you have time for yourself, time for personal development, time to look at or frame things in a different way. This is taking you in a higher and better direction. That's something to be grateful for. That's something that's working out. Okay. Some of you might be watching this in parts of the world where you're curling up in your bed and you have your favorite pillow and you're covering yourself with your favorite blanket. And after watching this, you're going to curl up with your favorite book. That's something that's working out. You have a nice comfy bed to sleep in. Some of you in some part of the world are watching this as you get dinner prepared. You've got food in the fridge. You have the opportunity to make a nice meal for yourself or your family. That's working out. There is always something to be grateful for. But again, we don't just stop there. The energy doesn't reach a stasis and become static and rigid there. After the gratitude piece, what's the next best thing? What's the next best available vibration after gratitude? And for some of you, that could be, it could be love. I have an amazing husband or partner, or I love my dog, or God, I love today. Today, some wonderful things worked out. Like I had a really nice exchange with the person in the grocery store, and it made me feel connection. That's something that's working out in a world that's, self-isolating in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms. Anytime we have connection, that's beautiful, that's enriching. It makes us feel more whole. And so keep climbing that ladder, keep moving further up on the emotional spectrum of vibration. Keep opting in for the next best available resonance or vibration. A lot of us think that when we're manifesting a new reality and we're trying to create a new way of being or improve our lives in any way, shape, or form, that it has to be, going from 0 to 60. And quantum leaping. And I don't like to use that term so much because it's highly misunderstood, number one, because quantum shifts on a cosmic level happen incrementally. Okay. And I think that it's one of those buzzwords, sadly, in our field of coaching, mentoring, spiritual development, personal development. We talk about quantum leaping, taking huge leaps forward. And we think it's like going from 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. Everything in the universe happens incrementally. So stop creating this standard for yourself that, God, why can't I just be happy? Take the burden and the pressure off of yourself of setting an extremely high bar, because a lot of us feel very distant from the idea that's happy and that we're happy. And it's usually because we're placing a lot of emphasis on the external world to make that so. It's never something that shows up in your external reality to offer you a way of being internally. It's always inside out. It's never outside in. We think if money shows up, then I'll be happy. Or if my soulmate partner shows up, I'll be happy. And I'll be able to go from 0 to 60 in my own life, from feeling piss poor and shitty and, disenfranchised 1 second, and then feeling elated and ebullient and excited, the second later. It doesn't work that way. And yet we keep kind of setting this ideal up in our minds that it works that way for people, or, we're used to seeing the highlight reels of people's lives on social media of, look how happy I am. Look at my Instagram page with my amazing filter. And I got here, and it took a minute for me to get here, but oh my God, and now everything's rosy. And we hold ourselves to these impossible standards based on basically a lie that we're seeing in social media. Everybody's got it all together. Everybody's got all the answers. No one on this fucking planet has all the answers at this moment in time. It may look that way. It might appear that way, Their marketing and advertising might be geared that way, but I guarantee you it is not the case. So instead of thinking, well, how can I be happy this next minute? Ask yourself this instead. How do I opt in to viewing, relating with my emotions as portals to move into elevated stations of consciousness? Because the more we examine our emotions, because these are the keys to getting us there. Our emotions are the keys to helping us move into elevated states of consciousness. Okay? These are literally the rungs of the ladder. Our emotional states that we move in and out of and have very, very much a fluid experience with throughout our day, right? Even though we might have a certain go-to way of being that might not feel very good, we still have moments of happiness. We still have good belly laughs. We'll still be able to watch something, witness something happening in the world, or maybe in the park today, a child laughing, and have that innocent, childlike sense of wonder in witnessing something like that. So we're very fluid. We have the ability to move through emotions all the time. The problem is where we decide to set up camp with our emotions. And if you're setting up camp in a place where you feel blame, shame, resentment right now, and I don't blame you, there's that word blame, because we are living in a world that feels very imbalanced. It feels very unwholesome, right? But even in that, you always and never have the choice to say, okay, I choose not to judge it. I choose to accept that this is happening. But what I don't have to accept is that I take this on for myself. What I don't have to accept is believing that this is the nature of reality for everyone, including myself. What I don't have to accept, what I refuse to accept, what I refuse to hook into or opt into, is feeling like I have to stay in this energy. But then again, we have to keep climbing up in awareness. Okay, well, what's the next best thing? Past acceptance. What can you be grateful for? What's working out? Okay, and what's past that? Where did you create connection? Where did you connect to something that feels more whole, something that feels better, something that feels like it resonates with a sense of being in alignment with the life that you're living? What does that look like when you're in alignment? You're merging with something that matches your values, your ethics, your principles. You are lining up with something in your life that gives you meaning. Keep going. Okay? It's where we're allowing our energy to be static, or where we think anything about our existence is static. We have to remember this. No feeling is final. No way of being is final. We are in a constantly evolving, ever expanding cosmic experience of accessing different stations, elevated levels of awareness and consciousness. This is happening all the time. It's only the illusion here in 3D that we are stuck. You're never stuck. You might be exploring a consciousness loop, but even in that, you're integrating new lessons and you're processing new ways of experiencing a particular level of consciousness, but it just ends up being a consciousness loop because you're not willing to opt into the next best available vibration, okay? So I hope this is making sense. I really hope this is making sense. So like I said, I have an entire course built around this. If you feel that you are absolutely struggling with accessing the next best higher emotional state, if you feel like you are suffering because you feel static, you feel your existence is rigid, you feel like it's not moving, you feel like there's no momentum that you're creating in your life, it's because you've set up camp with a certain set of emotional themes, and you keep projecting and, redirecting the focus of attention in your life, and all of your external experiences exist to corroborate or validate that internal state you're already feeling. So that can feel like stuckness. How do you get out of that? I have an entire program around that. But also, do watch this again. And if you are tuning into this, halfway through or whatever, please go back and watch from the beginning and employ some of the things that I'm saying here. Be willing to broaden your perspective past the very contracted and limited state of, I only feel this every day. You don't. We're very fluid beings. It's just that's where most of your focus, your attention, your awareness is lying at the moment. But no feeling is final. No way of being is final. We're not built that way. Nothing about our design is meant to be static. Even your physical body is designed for movement and flow. Even though it might feel clunky sometimes and our body doesn't, feel as stretched out and as flexible as we'd like it to, everything in the cosmos, everything in the entirety of consciousness is built for movement. It's built for flow. It's built for fluidity, including your own body. Okay? Your mind, your emotions, everything. Okay? So broaden your perspective out past, who am I beyond my pain in the moment? It's a great way to start digging in. You can start by taking a deep breath and just calling in your God self. God self, God self, God self. Your highest vantage point of view. You're calling in that aspect of self that already knows you're built for movement, that you're designed for flow. That's the part of you that already knows there's a higher and better timeline available for you. It's already playing in that level of awareness. So when you call in your God self, you're calling in this aspect that has privy to all the moving parts beyond your pain or beyond the emotion that you're in right now that feels final. That's never